Hi there, Joe Mackay again. Yeah, I got a solid week of ice climbing coming up here, and I realized, like last winter I was in Spain all winter, so it's the first time in 25 years that I didn't go ice climbing, and now, what is it, first week of March, and I've got to pull all my ice gear out, and I want to do, because I'm going to be doing it every day, I want to sort of check my gear, and one thing I find when I'm ice climbing is if my ice screws are well maintained, it makes the whole thing much more pleasurable. I mean, ice climbing, of course, as we all know, is pretty much the most idiotic thing you can do. But if you're going to do stupid things safely. Well, I was thinking, I was curious, because ice screws. This is the first ice screw I bought. You see that? Sort of. It's got two curves to it, great big wide angle teeth or threads. Very difficult, very narrow diameter to it, so that sort of reduces its strength somewhat. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I do believe that in ice climbing, sort of the revolution, or the thing that made ice climbing a lot safer, was when people started putting more thought into the ice screws. Prior to that, I mean, we were sort of, this is one of the original ice screws that I had, this old Chenard. And if you can't really see it that well, but it's super thick in comparison to today's ice screws. And the threads themselves, are probably 3 times as wide as the modern ice screw, which really didn't facilitate in the placing of the ice screw that much. And these things, if you wanted to start them, you can't see it, but this has got hammer marks all over the top of them, and you just have to pound them in and turn them at the same time like this, and just to get them started. And then something like this was, it'd take forever to get into the ice. The other common ice screw in the early days is the snard, the low snard. You don't see these anymore. I mean, they're just not. There's not any reason for having a snard. But those were pound in. See, they have no threads and no teeth, and sort of a beveled point to it, and then a slot so that you could clean the ice out. And you'd pound these in. Of course, if you kept pounding on them, this head right here is just held by a weld, which quite often that weld would crack, so I would always have mine placed like that. I mean, this is all ancient history now. We don't use that kind of equipment. And then another puppy that was out for a while, I mean, this was really common in Scotland, was the warthog. And I was kind of making fun of warthogs one time, and I was working for Yamnuska, and then they had a Scottish guy. The guy had a whole rack of these puppies, and they're I think they're great for where they use them, because quite often they're pounding them into the dirt and frozen mud and sod of Ben Nevis on those ice faces, probably right next to a sheep's foot somewhere. And you could put them in, but they're a bitch you had to chop them out. These you had to sort of chop out at the same time too. In theory, they would twist out, but that wouldn't always work. Then came along, we had a few of these Russian titanium screws. They're okay, but certainly they don't measure up to today's modern screws. I will carry, but they're light, so I might carry, if I was to go and I was guiding, say, Athabasca, I knew conditions were perfect, I know we're not going into a crevasse, and I'm a big one for lightening things up, then maybe I would probably have a couple of these on me. Just because you have to have an ice screw, it'd be pretty hard to explain to the judge what you're not doing there with an ice screw. And they would work, but we don't really use those too much anymore. So today's screws, I'm getting my gear in shape because I have a solid week of ice climbing coming up. I haven't been ice climbing. Last winter would be the first time I missed a winter of ice climbing because I was in Spain all winter. So I don't know what kind of shape my gear is in. So here I am, I'm having to look at it, and I want to sharpen my screws. So The ice screw itself, you'll see has these sharp threads, and quite often as you're placing them in the ice, even though these are good solid metal, they'll wear down a little bit and they'll start to develop burrs and ticks from the minerals and abnormalities and just the plain hard brittleness of the ice. And so you want to keep your ice screws as sharp as possible so that when you're putting them in place, they'll catch really quickly and they'll place really quickly, and it'll just make your whole day infinitely better, infinitely better. The standard screw, I guess this would be the standard these days with the little quick turning pulley, which was a big point or a good selling point to these things. Some of these other screws, here's the Helix by Gravel. I like these. They don't rack very well, but I'll carry a couple of these just because you got that leverage with the thing, so you can place them really quickly. So they'll be on my sort of lead position on my harness. And then, of course, we have screws of various sizes. Here's another one. I think the theory behind this was that you were able to clip the draw into it, clip your rope, once you got the screw started, and just keep spinning it because of this little spinner. Doesn't work very well. Dumb idea. Lots of people bought them. Okay, so if you want to sharpen your ice screws or your ice tools, you need really two things. You need a small triangular file. I find it works best. And one of these flat bastard files, as they call them. Seems like a strange name. And it's not rocket science sharpening an ice screw. Essentially, all you want to do is just restore the shape that the manufacturer has placed on the ice screw. If you look really closely at the tip of your ice screw, you'll see that it's beveled inwards. And this is to facilitate the cutting of the ice and the displacement of the ice, and just make things all that much smoother. So you want to be careful to maintain that bevel, that curve on the ice, so that it curves inwards towards the core of your ice screw. And most of the times the screws themselves will just get little burrs on them, and what you want to do is just smooth off those burrs and retain its sharpness. This one's quite sharp, so I'll find. And I can tell if it's sharp or not. Like, I just put it on here and it, okay, well, it grabs, but it's not like a really tight, like it's not going to be like skin breaking grabbing. So in this one here, yeah, it has developed burrs, got a little bit of rust on it. And so when I go to restore it, I just brace myself. So if you have a workshop with a vise of some sort, I mean, that works really well. But I can do it just right here just as well. And I just want to make sure that I keep that bevel in there and I don't flatten out the screw. I don't want to do that. At least I don't think I want to do that. I haven't been doing that. And it doesn't really take much. So this screw's fairly dull. And this one thread, okay, so now I can see it's all silver. There we go. And I can already see the sheen. Okay, that's 1, 2. And then the next thing I do is I just maybe do one pass on the outside edge just to remove any burrs. And then the tip here, the inside front of your tooth of your screw, I just try to restore that a little bit. I don't go too crazy. Yeah. So that's one tooth restored. Ooh, that's sharp. And it's funny, you just, that little bit of work will make this thing twice as easy to place. And there's nothing to it. Anybody can do it. There's nothing to it. A lot of people, if you have drumming tools, like a hand grinder tool sort of thing, I would stay away from those. You don't need them. And my biggest concern would be overheating the tip of the screw and losing the temper out of your metal. So I have that drumming tool, and maybe, just maybe, I might use it on my crampons, which are a much bigger tool, or much more steel has to be displaced, but I'd still be really careful about overheating